everyone, and welcome to Wowhead Weekly number 268. Almost forgot the show number, but I got it in the end there. Today's show, we have a very special guest whom we will introduce very, very soon. We will talk about the things that have recently happened. And for example, in 9.1, a lot of the lore has been untangled a bit as we have progressed more in the quest lines. And we also have the Ian Preach interview that happened quite recently as well as some other smaller topics too. A hint on the special guest is that we're discussing 9.1 lore, by the way. So before we get into anything, let me introduce myself. I'm Annie, or also known as Annie Fuchsia, and I'm a full-time streamer on Twitch, where you can find me play lots and lots of World of Warcraft, among other things. My co-host is, as usual, the very lovely, hardworking woman whose picture I'm trying to find right now. Here we go. Perculia.
Hi everyone. Thanks for the lovely intro. I'm Perk. I run Wowhead. Sometimes I'm joined by Brightpaw on the show, and we have a lot going on with both 9.1 and TBC. And we have a special guest for this month because it was a really lots of lore happening on the PTR. So our guest does lots of great lore videos, analysis, breakdown pieces, narrating what's happening in new expansions, as well as character studies. So please give a warm welcome to NOBBEL87.
The moment you pass it on, Brightpaw shows up. I'm like, I don't want to take it away from Brightpaw. I'm being all flushed here with compliments. I'm like, oh, there's Brightpaw. Hello. Howdy, everybody.
Hello,
I'm sorry, I need to do the intro.
Welcome.
Let me do my intro. Hi, everybody. I am NOBBEL87 on the internet. I love talk about Warcraft lore. Been doing it for many years now. So stream over on Twitch when I got the time for it. And today we're going to be diving into some delicious patch 9.1 Chains of Domination lore.
Indeed.
Was that a good
Sounds
intro?
like a great plan. Yes. I am excited already.
Very happy with it.
Yes. Brightpaw's happy too. That's a plus. That's a plus. Also, I think Maya might be excited too because I just saw her pass me. Where is she? Oh, there she is. You can see a tail. Yeah, Chains of Domination 9.1. It's the perfect time to have you here, Nobbel. So thank you very much for joining us. We were actually briefly mentioning you last week as well because, new patches, new stories being told, and more things to speculate, more things to talk about. So yeah, thank you again for being here. And yeah, you can hear that. Yeah, my cat is very loud. Excuse her. But yeah, I think we need to put the spoiler tag up almost straight away, don't we? Or what do you think?
Yeah, we thought because Nobbel is a lore expert, we wanted to make sure that we gave the proper time, had enough time to discuss the new chapters on the PTR and discuss anything interesting from the past chapters. So why don't we put the spoiler tag up and we can discuss some of the Night Warrior and Uther storylines and other things like Dreadlord reveals.
Indeed, I think that's a good idea. So I'm going to put the spoiler tag up now, and it's going to be quite a bit of lore now. So if you don't want to be spoiled, you may want to take a break, maybe do some cleaning or maybe some dishes in the kitchen. And then when you come back, maybe we'll be done with the lore bits and maybe briefly talk about the Preach and Ian interview, for example. But for now, it is spoiler time as we got a novel lore edition of Wowhead Weekly.
Yeah.
Here we are. So yeah, one of the first topics or one of the first stories to touch here is the chapter on Night Warrior. We finally got some more reveals and information on Tyrande, who we've talked about a lot as well, and also the Winter Queen and the very special connection with Elune here too. How do you want to? Yeah.
So
wanted to dive in there. Yeah.
So
I mean,
go ahead.
Why don't we discuss the Elune bit first, and then we can discuss what all the other Night Warriors mean. So, to set the scene, in this quest line, we are learning more about the power of the Night Warrior. We learn there are other Night Warriors in Revendreth, the Stone Rite, and then in Maldraxxus. And we all try to basically stage an intervention with Tyrande, who is getting more and more vengeful. And then a mysterious cinematic happens where the dialogue then reveals that Elune has intervened in some way and is the sister of the Winter Queen.
Mm-hmm.
And Tyrande then seems freed from her all-consuming anger. So lots going on there. I'm sure the cinematic is hidden because it could be our first, look at Elune. It could be something really cool with Tyrande being, a badass, or something referencing Teldrassil. But even the little quest snippets we saw were very intriguing. So why don't we discuss the Elune connection first? Because we were always thinking it could be Elune based on hints, but this made it very clear it was Elune. So, what are your thoughts on the connection novel? How they're sisters?
Yeah, the earlier speculation, like when the quest line popped up, it was like people were divided in two camps. Some immediately saw it as Elune, whereas others were like, nah, that has to be Aonar. And the confusion happens with the Winter Queens calling Ysera the pet of her sister.
Mm-hmm.
And from that connection, people were like, well, Ysera is connected to the Emerald Dream. The one who made her connect to the Emerald Dream, that was Freya and Aonar.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, that connection is there. There was also the memory you could pick up. No, it turns out it's actually Elune, and those connections are there because she died at the Temple of Elune. She was struck down with a tear of Elune. The way that she was brought back was in the same position when she died. Elune. There were all these connections there. And now we also find out, because Ardenweald has been described as the autumn and winter, to the Emerald Dreams, spring and summer. So the idea is kind of like if the Winter Queen is the Winter Queen, and perhaps Elune, being her sister, is in the vein of the Summer Queen. That is very much in the realm of speculation, though. What we know about Elune is that there's a connection to Night Elf society way back, like millennia ago. They learned about Elune. They incorporated that into their belief, into their faith. And over the ages, as stories are told, Elune became more of a presence, more of a actual solid being rather than this is something we believe in. And that was most prominently shown when Ysera died in Legion, because the moon turned, the tendrils reached down, and they literally lifted her spirit up amongst the stars. And that was one of the first times we were like, cool, that's a direct intervention from Elune, not just through her followers, but actual Elune right there.
Mm-hmm.
What the heck's going on? And it seems like they're opening up the path to tell more about the Elune's background.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you were saying, she kind of went from this abstract concept to suddenly being a force that could intervene in matters, as we saw in Legion. And then a short while later, leading up to BFA, the Night Elves were very puzzled that Elune was not intervening in the battle for Teldrassil, and some of them, claimed that they lost their faith and they could be raised as undead because they were so bitter that Elune had forsaken them. And even Tyrande was like, I'm turning into the Night Warrior. I'm going to the Shadowlands to get answers as to why we were forsaken. Mm-hmm. So while this was a pretty recent concept, it's something Blizzard has been emphasizing pretty recently, again and again, that Elune had some sort of agency in protecting the Night Elves. And it's clearer now that if the Elune is tied to the Winter Queen in some way, and when the cycle of death broke, the Winter Queen's powers were dimmed in some form, that Elune could have been affected by the anima shortage change as well. But there's still some things that we aren't sure of, like why, did Elune come from the Shadowlands, and then did she leave the realm to watch over the Night Elves? There's a line in the quest that the Night Elves died to serve a purpose. Apparently that was said in the cinematic, but we don't know what that is. Elune conveniently did not mention that, just that they were going to serve a purpose. So
the quest didn't specifically say that they died for a purpose, though. It says that the Winter Queen mentions that there is still a purpose for their spirits, but not necessarily that their death was with a purpose, right?
Right. Yeah. It's more like what whether it was intended that their death had a purpose, or they could take on another purpose. We don't know. It seems like there's some plan or something they could be used for, but we're not sure what that is. And it made it seem like something would happen in the future with them.
Yeah, it seems like the concept of, we got all these spirits laying around. I'm sure there's going to be some purpose for it. But at the same time, the idea of Elune just let them burn for the heck of it.
Yeah, I
Ooh, that's
disagree
a
with
spicy
that.
thing.
Yeah, I
that's
don't
pretty
think that. I
spicy.
don't think that's true.
Mm.
I'm just wondering if maybe the Night Elves and Ardenweald now could, if there's another battle against the Jailer, or if they could play an important role in straightening out the cycle of death. Or we've seen in the Kyrian quest line how Uther's presence kind of made them rethink how some things happened in Bastion. Maybe the Night Elf presence could, I don't know, lead to some changes in Ardenweald.
And
But yeah.
I very much like the connection you also made with the Battle for Azeroth, where they were like, Elune is forsaking us, because the little seeds were already planted there. If we
Yeah,
take
I
a look back
completely
at the
forgot about
Collector's
that.
Edition
That's a
story,
really good connection.
yeah, we look back at the Collector's Edition, where Sylvanas actually makes mention that she thought Elune stood in the way of her plans, like actual Elune standing in the way of her plans. And towards the Night Elves, it was really muddily done. The whole deciding to ally with Sylvanas for reasons, and that storyline is just kind of dropped because now they are with Kalia Menethil, and they're like, we had no choice, yet our choices will be made clear. It was not done well in Battle for
No.
Azeroth. And then from the Night Elves' point of view, what they never got to witness, and we learn from the Collector's Edition, is that Elune did not forsaken them. Yes, she allowed Sylvanas to burn down Teldrassil. She did not intervene in that moment. But at the same time, when the fires were consuming the tree and the priestesses called out to their goddess, she was there to, at the very least, give them a peaceful slumber before the fires consumed them. And that bit of the story, I mean, the spirits know this, although they might have forgotten. But the ones that survived never got to see that part. And they were like, where the heck was Elune in all of this?
Yeah, I mean, if the everyone that knew that Elune intervened was, they perished in Teldrassil, and to outsiders like Tyrande, who was, in Stormwind trying to hold the portal open, helping them breathe, or those that died in Darkshore, they would have no idea. To them, it just seemed like Elune was unable to do anything. And you also have to wonder for the souls that had the peaceful slumber, maybe they had second thoughts when they went into the Shadowlands and got stuck in the maw. Like that was
You think?
it was like a cruel joke. Like, oh, we thought we
no.
were going to a peaceful slumber. Why are we here? Maybe they ever thought, maybe they saw that Elune intervened, but now like did something horrible happen? Like what went wrong? They're probably
Was I a
very
bad
confused.
Elfaloon? Did I not pray enough
no.
to you?
Yeah.
Why am I being
Yeah.
tortured right now?
Yeah.
And then to
Exactly.
your suggestion of would Elune lose power because the Winter Queen lost power and are connected to the Shadowlands? Like, we don't know the origin of Elune. And because that is still such a mystery, there's a whole lot of things they can talk about. But for me, it kind of gave the impression that whereas the Winter Queen is tied to the domain of death, Elune is tied to the domain of life, which a lot of us expect actually the story to go into with the Shadowlands. We've now very much focused on the death domain. We might actually go into the life domain, and that would be brilliant to talk about Elune, dive deeper into what exactly she is, because once upon a time she was the night elf goddess. She was part of Azeroth only. But throughout Shadowlands, we learned that the Night Warrior is not an Azeroth only thing. Therefore, Elune is not an Azeroth only thing. So what the heck is Elune?
Yeah, and she had to be pretty big if she's worshipped by so many different cultures
Worlds.
across different planets. Even aside from this Night One Covenant campaign, we learned already in 9.0 that Elune intervened on another planet that seemed to have, I mean, it wasn't explicitly old gods, but it sounded like some old god type invasion. So she could be a pretty big cosmic force, and we on that cosmology chart, Elune is sort of strikingly missing. There's so many characters and concepts outlined on it, but Elune is not there, and there's speculation she could be at the top of the light chart, but it does seem like her identity is kept somewhat of a secret to be revealed at a later point.
And that's
I would
also
love her to
another
be like the
interesting
source
one.
behind life.
You would love her too.
Be the source behind life, like
Oh,
just, or at least a Because a lot of people are like, okay, she's the sister of the Winter Queen, so therefore she must be the same as the Winter Queen. So where we have a pantheon of death, we might see a pantheon of life.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much they can dive into, and
So more
maybe even
completing
dive
each
into the
other
Emerald Dream again.
rather than being copies of each
Yeah.
other.
And apparently the Winter Queen has also been abandoned by Elune, or she felt abandoned by Elune for like eons, because she cries a little and she's like, oh, my
Yeah.
dear sister, after all this time,
Mm-hmm.
you had not abandoned me.
I think it's really interesting as well with Elune becoming potentially a non-mysterious thing suddenly, because we've always seen Elune as some kind of mysterious force somewhere. I mean, do we have any kind of a visual image of her?
No, and that's the thing a lot of people get confused with, because with the Temple of Elune and Darnassus, people always assume that the elf in the center is Elune, but that's one of her disciples. So right now it's a very abstract concept. We have the tier. We have temples that are done in a certain classical style, but Elune's presence is a mystery right now.
And that makes this
That
cinematic, which is hidden right now, even more exciting to see. And I hope that they do make it, a proper cinematic, because, like you mentioned, we're finally potentially seeing some unraveling of Tyranda's story, and having Elune potentially show herself in one way or another is a big deal if that's going to happen.
if it's gonna be a cutscene for sure, like what we've seen with Ysera so far, twice they knocked it out of the park. Ysera's Transcendence in Legion and Return in Ardenweald just knocked out of the park. So yes, although at the same time, there's also a lot of room for Elune merely being using Tyrande as like her avatar. There's also the room for that. And you mentioned the tier as well. The tier of Elune, we now seen a second one. Like the first one was very much connected to the Titans, right? Like all these
Right.
little artifacts we created, we gathered in Legion were all named after Titans. Therefore, the connection was potentially made to Elune being part of the Pantheon as well, or part of Team Titan. But now we got a second one, so I kind of wonder where the first one came from and how exactly
Yeah,
it was named Tier of Elune.
and when we bring it back, Khadgar has the whole quest line where he's talking about how like this tier of Elune could be the key to understanding the Naru and Zira and unlocking more knowledge with that. So it is tying Elune to the Naru in some way, and I look surprised we're seeing the Naru invade the Shadowlands and do something in Revendreth. So all really interesting connections. But yeah, I'm still curious to know, because Tehran went to the Shadowlands to know why Elune's power was dimmed. I'm still really curious if we're going to get an answer to that, if that's like a 9-2 thing, or with the Covenant campaign seemingly wrapping up, if that's a 10-0 thing. And then if it's a 10-0 thing, they could save Elune's image as a reveal for, a BlizzCon style cinematic. Which might be more epic than, a cutscene.
Tyranda's entry into the Shadowlands, wasn't that to claim vengeance upon Sylvanas?
It was for a few things. Like, she did say that she wanted to know, she wanted answers to a few things, and she wanted to know why Elune abandoned her children. Like, that was one of her first questions. And
But why did she hang out in the mall all this time? Like, she was invited to come to Ardenweald.
Yeah. Well,
oh no, I'm gonna go hunt down Sylvanas, leave me alone. But you wanted answers, right? Yeah, leave me alone, I'm gonna kill now.
Yeah. Well, maybe that was how the magic was clouding her thoughts. But at one point she wanted answers at one point. Yeah.
I'm so curious about that, because we're kind of, at the beginning of 9.1, one of the first quest lines is going to the defense of Ardenweald, and even there is like a really cool moment supposed to happen in game, but we don't see it. And a lot of the feedback that I've heard so far about this Night Warrior storyline is that people feel like it's rushed, like she didn't get her moment to shine. Sure enough, they kicked the Horde out of Darkshore, and she got the kill on the Thanos. But what exactly did this whole Night Warrior storyline end up with? Now, for me, I'm hoping that in that Ardenweald 9.1 thing, that there's actually going to be a moment, because Tyrande shows up there and we don't know what happens, but Ysera puts it to sleep. My hope is that this will be a moment where Tyrande actually face to face with Sylvanas. She gets her moment to take the kill, the thing that she's been hunting for the last year and a half now, maybe two. And then Anduin is like in between. And in that moment, with the Boy King mind controlled standing between her and the kill, she shows that she is not completely gone, that there's still something of the priestess in there. She does not take that kill that she was looking for, which then allowed Sylvanas to retreat with the sigil and leads into this whole Night Warrior thing. But that is pure headspace,
Speculation.
headcanon. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that
hopefully.
would be really cool
Yeah, that
because
sounds
right
cool.
now we've just seen like Tyrande suffering a lot, and Nathanos seems pretty happy that he's being sent to the Shadowlands. She's not really present in a lot of the BFA storylines. The Darkshore questline to get the customization was cool, but many people feel like her moment was soured by Nathanos escaping, and her the night elves being turned into undead. So it always seems like a lot of her moments with this power have like a catch, or there's a like a asterisk, like it's something that sours them. And without these cutscenes, comes across that, oh, Toronto's meant to have a moment, and now she is, she needed nap time, she needed time out, or or like everyone's trying to calm her down and she's getting angrier, and then something happens and now she's normal. Like you don't really have that emotional payoff from her story without seeing these cutscenes. So I hope they add something really cool.
Also, I feel like we didn't really feel that much of her rage either. I mean, we kind of had that quest of chasing her and Torghast, but there wasn't really that much that described much of her being Night Warrior. So I feel like if it's just suddenly gone, it feels like a waste of a story in a way, because it led to nothing. It led to her, potentially being a bit angry chasing Sylvanas, but that could have happened even without the Night Warrior thing being in the picture. So I hope there is a little bit more to that part of the story.
Yeah, it'd be nice if there was like more short stories, things sort of explaining her point of view, because she was a character in the background for a while, and everyone is like, why is she so angry? Or the pre-patch story didn't do her any favors because in the book she was doing a lot of helping behind the scenes, and you understood why she was like frustrated that she couldn't do more. But in game, it's just like, where is she? Why is she nowhere? Then you had that really stilted in-game scene with Sourfang and Malfurion, and the emotional impact was really lost when she decided to spare Sourfang. So I feel like her character's arc could be explained a bit better in game, and with supplemental
Tron is
materials
always
too.
done way better in the books. Like they do the Night Elves a disservice. Not to mention that they gave us back Darkshore, but in in a Warfront that just constantly rotates, and then at the end of the day they're like, oh yeah, Night Elves won, by the way. You all got your lands back. It's like, would have been nice if you just showed it in game. Maybe a proper storyline.
Yeah, I agree. It's like all these things that on their own maybe don't seem like a big deal, but when you add them up, it does seem that the Night Elf storyline has been sort of not gotten the proper attention. And it's like, just if one, not all the things happen, but maybe one or two of the things, I think that Night Elf players would be more excited, as opposed to feeling like they're the punching bag here.
Exactly.
Yep.
Because that's how they're being used. Like, you need conflict, you need poor victims. Oh, just take out some of the Night Elves. There you go.
Yeah,
Meanwhile,
exactly.
in Warcraft 3 and the books, they are badass. Night Elves are badasses. They're some of the most powerful races in the game. And they're like, nah, I will never forgive them for the Darkshore intro where the Night Elves were like, I don't want to fight. And the Horde were like, Lord Ogar. And it's like, I don't want to fight? Really?
Yeah.
Really? You're Night Elves. You're over 10,000 years old. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, you don't get to be 10,000 years old and hold on to, have such a vast empire built upon knowledge, even after getting rid of magic. Like, you don't rebuild and have this really cool, unique society by being incompetent. So,
yeah. No, that's actually a very good point. The fact that you put it like that, too, because that makes the whole thing a lot more ridiculous as well, because that's the impression that I've gotten as well. I may not have read as much lore as you guys have, and to me, yeah, I do feel like Night Elves do come off pretty weak. They're not really given that much justice in the game. In the game that we see, like directly.
100%.
Yeah, so
that's quite sad.
Yeah, so here's hoping the cinematics in 9.1 are pretty epic. And we were discussing this before, but we were saying that if the Covenant campaigns are wrapping up, what's next? Like, there are still some loose ends, especially with, you know, the Night Elf story, because Teldrassil still doesn't exist. Tehran still doesn't know why Elune has been weakened.
Yeah.
You know, they've got
But
a culture to rebuild. So I wonder if that will be explored even after the Covenants wrap up, and then
I mean,
maybe we move into like a light or a life pantheon for later chapters of Shadow.
we're talking about Elune being weakened though, but at the same time, can you really expect Elune to solve all their problems? Like, if I was Elune, right, and Tron and Malfurion walk up to me and be like, "Why didn't you save us from the fire?" I would tell them, maybe you should be better at warfare and just defend your lands. Maybe Malfurion should have actually used his druidic skills while the Horde invaded a literal forest. Why do you expect me to solve all your problems? I'm just your goddess. Because
I
since
mean,
when do
but
we
you could
you
expect
have a
Elune to
point.
be always there?
Sylvanas had the power of the jailer behind her at that point. And you know, the machine of death was broken at that point, even though if we know that the souls went to Teldrassil, the machine of death had it, you know, was already broken. So, you know, you could argue, well, like, why wasn't channeling all of her power into Tehran to have it be an equal-ish fight? But no, I do see your point. It's just I actually pulled this up, and I think in the 8-3 conclusion, what it said, Chiron said, "My hunger for vengeance will not be sated so long as Sylvanas Windrunner remains free, and until I know why Elune abandoned her children."
Hmm.
So
Oh well,
it
there might
seemed
be a
like she cares about
speech.
both things.
Like,
Yeah, there could be a
yeah,
speech.
there could be
Hmm.
like a whole Elune speech about my child. I never forsaken you. You just suck, and that's why you lost your home.
I do hope she is just as blunt as you are. That would make
Yeah.
for great.
The first time we see Elune, Elune's just like, no.
Just burns the elves to the ground.
Yep. I'm not fixing your problems. That's for you to fix.
Right?
Yep, that's not my job.
I do think that there is something more to it. Like, obviously, it's also unfair if the Night Elves have, you know, like a free I win card. It's just like, oh, bad things can't happen. Elune's going to protect us, and Elune hates every other race in Azeroth. That wouldn't be fair, too. But I thought the book made it seem like it was strange that Elune wasn't responding as much to them. Like, it was like like there was an absence of some sort. So maybe it's a halfway point where the Night Elves can't just assume Elune will clean up after them, but
Mm-hmm.
something was
Mm-hmm.
something, she was affected by it in some way. And there's
That
also like
goes back.
lots of parallels. So let's go ahead.
No. Lots of parallels.
Oh yeah, I was gonna just say that the parallels we saw in the Afterlife cinematic, how you know, the Night Elves have the central tree, and then that, you know, got destroyed, and then the Winter Queen, Ardenweald, has the central tree, and she was having the visions that if she didn't you know, protect the groves, that you know, that tree would, you know, wither and, you know, turn brown and, you know, potentially, you know, be destroyed. Like, lots of visual parallels to Teldrassil's fate there.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah, I was gonna say, like, that was also my point about Elune forsaking them. The point I made earlier about it being a very muddied storyline, where the elves' motivation of joining Sylvanas was really vague, as well as she
Hmm.
didn't completely forsaken them. Like, she was still there. They might not be aware of it, but that was more my point. Like, what did they expect? Elune to just toss away this magical fire that all of a sudden was able to cross half the ocean into a very soaked, watery tree and burn it? No, that's not Elune's game. Elune is like, you worship to her, and sometimes she'll bless you, and sometimes she won't. Which is what Tyrande in the War of the Angels trilogy was very well
Right.
aware of. Like, she back then felt like, I'm just a vessel of Elune. I pray, and sometimes she grants me the power to help out people. So this whole idea of Elune must be there for us. I mean, I can understand it from their point of view. Like, you are our goddess. You should have been there for us. How did you let this happen? But at the same time, it's a weak argument, right? Like, you can't expect Elune to just tendril down and murder everybody.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's like you said, it was very muddy, and I think clarity on it would be good, especially if, you know, we saw in Shadows Rising, Sarah Moonmorden is talking about, you know, this horrible in between, you know, state that she's been put into, and now she's consumed by vengeance as undead, and it's like a horrible state to be in. And we know that Dalaran is alive. Like, the characters in Ardenweald are asking about her as well. So there is still some story to cover with those two characters that feel very upset by Elune abandoning, and what they'll think of the whole situation. Who knows?
What
Maybe we'll
happens?
get dark elf customizations as night elves if they were like, okay, yeah, we realized we were being over the top. But yeah, Syrah in the epilogue did seem like to sort of be in constant like mental anguish over this state she found herself in as an undead.
It's interesting to mention that Tyrande was well aware of, Elune not always being there. Like, she's sometimes a blessing, sometimes she may not be around for it. It's interesting that Tyrande is aware of that and then suddenly is very upset. Wondering how much of that is the Night Warrior effect and how much of that is maybe because of how important she thought the tree was. Maybe there's like a limit where she feels like this is so important that she just can't believe that Elune didn't intervene in one way or another, at least to maybe minimize the damage a little bit. Maybe not to completely stop it, but to do something. So it's going to be interesting to see how those conversations come together, how those stories match each other, because obviously it's been a huge part of the Night Elf story. And yeah, it'll be nice to see if they are able to have a conversation about it.
Yeah, it could be that
There's
like
also
Elune was
part
there
of
all along, but like because of such a traumatic situation, they expected too much of Elune. It's like, no, I'm still there. Like you were able to channel the Night Warrior through me. I helped you win Darkshore. Like there could be Elune could always be around in subtle ways, but because
Yeah,
Teldrassil
maybe it
is
would
so
have been worse otherwise.
yeah.
Well, part of the moral of the story, isn't it? Because Tirana went from somebody who asked for Elune's blessing and occasionally got it to demanding it. Like if you watch back the cutscene where she becomes the Night Warrior, she's like, Elune, I demand to be your Night Warrior's vessel with this
Interesting.
sacrifice.
Yeah.
And that led to her being consumed by vengeance because she started demanding from her goddess. So there's a lot of conversation they can have in that final moment where the tear comes out and Tirana mentions this tear is as much as Elune's as it is mine. I lost myself to this vengeance, this path of vengeance, which more of the story, you shouldn't lose yourself to vengeance because she starts fighting her own child, like her beloved Chandra is.
Right. And yeah, the tear could be Elune symbolizing like I saw this and I'm like Elune was very sad and that's why there's the tear that Elune is weeping and Elune tried to help in her own way, but Elune can't just I don't know, like smite
Could be cool
Sylvanas down.
storytelling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be explained, let's put it that. And of course, the identity and the connection to the Winter Queen's sister, there's so much deep diving into Elune, and I've also discussed this on my Discord. On the one hand, it's really interesting to get more details and more of the lore explained. On the other hand, we're running out of mysteries in Warcraft lore, so
Yeah.
some things might be nice to be kept into the form of, it is there, but what is it? We don't know. I'm tossed and turned. I'm curious, but at the same time, I
I
don't know.
thought the
We're gonna find
mystery
out.
would last a bit longer because they just
Right?
set up
Yeah.
the connection in 9.0 and they're revealing it in 9.1 and also 9.1 we get the whole fight with Sylvanas where I assume we'll finally know what her plan is and we're getting a book on her. So to me this reveal could have been saved for a later patch, at least one or two more patches.
I honestly
Yeah.
wonder if the timetable has been screwed up because we're now talking about the Night Warrior storyline. And it's really cool that we're going to get like Night Warriors of the past. We don't get them out of Bastion, but we got them out of Meldraxxus and Revendreth. But there was
Yeah.
no hint before 9.1 that the Stone Right could even wield the powers of Elune. And all of a sudden, 9.1 she can. And oh, by the way, this is not the original Stone Right. It's actually a soul.
Oh
And
yeah, I
oh,
know
by the
that's
way,
funny
it
how
used to be a
it's
Night
like
Warrior.
yeah, it was like, oh, Renathal, here's a book that's telling you that you got
You're
something
wrong.
wrong.
Like what? So that works out. And the one in
Yeah.
Meldraxxus, the spider lady, that's never been suggested that she's a warrior and a night warrior and a loon's powers, and apparently she is one as well. And quickly you bring them together and quickly you wrap it all up. And a lot of the covenants are just quickly wrapped up. I really wonder if they were
Yeah.
planning to spread this out or if they're just quickly getting this all together and out there so that they can move on to the next big thing rather than the in-between patches.
Yeah, I mean, we'll discuss the interview later on if we have time, but one thing that stood out was that they said 9.1 was the patch they first one they made from start to finish working at home. With Shadowlands, there was some work that was done before the pandemic. So you have a sense that they didn't realize it was going to cause so many challenges, and that's why it's taking a lot longer. And they wish they could say that 9.1 is in a few weeks, but that's not the case.
Yep.
So you have to wonder if they claimed it wouldn't be like WAD. I'm not exactly sure what that means, because WAD, at least WAD had a 6.2. There was a 6.1 and right. There was a 6.1 and a 6.2. But
yeah, I actually meant to ask you that when I heard Ian say that. I was gonna ask you, but then I forgot as I continued watching. Like, what does he mean? Like, what is it that happened in WAD that's like not happening now?
Pardon the camera. The cat is doing things.
No content, right? That was Warlords. Yeah. No content.
Yeah, so Warlords had there was the heavy rumor that Talador is meant to have like a raid with Yrel and the Draenei, and you look at her character development, and like that was cut halfway through. And then like it got wrapped up suddenly. So I thought Ian meant that there wouldn't be something similar, but of course it begs the question of, are we wrapping up the Covenants in 9.1? So like 9.2 is like I don't know, cosmic Arthas, like over the top, like new fantastical area to wrap things up, because it is a little strange that the Covenant campaigns that they're all being tied up very neatly, and it almost seems with the Sylvanas fight that the Jailer and the Arbiter might be wrapping up too. So
yeah, that's true as well, with Sylvanas being in the raid straight away. It kind of feels like most of our answers are just around the corner, and what happens then with the rest of the Shadowlands expansion
and the book you mentioned as well, because we're gonna get the Sylvanas book in November of this year, and we were discussing like what exactly will happen to Sylvanas in the raid. Will she make it out of there? Will she get her permadeath? And it would be a bit weird to have a book deep diving into a character if that character is no longer part of the Warcraft universe, unless it's going to be a book explaining how it was really bad of us to kill Sylvanas. But
right,
yeah, I wouldn't doubt it.
Yeah, unless the raid is actually going to be on, if their timetable is to put it behind November, but that would be so long though.
No, I cannot imagine that. But what I could see,
a raid in December.
So wait, but I do think 9.2 is going to be in 2022, because they're going to still be developing 9.2 working from home, and it's going to take longer. So my guess is that something the Sylvanas book will tie in with something in a future patch.
Interesting. But it does dive. If we read to the description on the website, it's pretty much the Arthas novel for Sylvanas. It dives into her life, and it goes to explain what she's been doing. And you don't do that unless that character will have a role to play, right?
Well, they did
or
that
you
with
do it before you kill them off.
Yeah, well, I mean, Arthas. Well, it's like yes and no, because Arthas was in Wrath of the Lich King, right?
Apparently before the raid came out. I wasn't into the lore back then that much, but apparently it came out before we killed Arthas, and then after the book we killed Arthas.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah, so
I feel like there has to be some spoiler in the Sylvanas book, or else if like her story was done, they could have released it now. But maybe there's some like twist that explains why we're going to another zone to deal with Sylvanas' soul, or I don't know. I think
Sorry for interrupting. Go
I think it could tie into an upcoming patch.
I think you're absolutely right. I think something has to happen that requires answers, and that's why this book then has that timing. I think that would make sense, and it wouldn't be that it's just the end, because then there would be no point of the book. Why would anyone read it?
At the same time, I mean, there's already something that happens we could require a book, which is why the heck is Sylvanas working with the Jailer? Why has she been doing all the things she's been doing, right? Because that's been Battle for Answer start that they've been hinting at this.
But do we care if she has a permadeath?
A lot of people care. I could tell you that much, but at the same time...
Yeah.
I don't see them ever making a good ending to this. I don't. There will always be a certain percentage of the player base that's not happy. They should have never brought Sylvanas out of the shadows. Making her the war chief was one of the biggest mistakes in my opinion. She works as the Banshee Queen, as the leader of the Forsaken, doing her thing, while the war chief was like, "What are you doing?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing, nothing." As a front and center character, with everybody loving her so much or hating her so much. Because, also if a player base is like, I'm done with Sylvanas,
Yep.
please just get rid of her.
Or it's like they've been defending her for a few years, and if it turns out that she wasn't who they thought they were, they'll feel very betrayed by that as well. It's like you're a fan of something, and then you feel like you can't enjoy it anymore.
The loyalist from Battle for Azeroth, and then in 9.1 you get this really tiny line with, oh yeah, you used to be loyal, you should know better than to interfere. And I'm like, really? I stuck with you, Dark Lady. I would understand the next time I saw you what was going on. I understand nothing.
Yeah.
The book also makes it seem like it's going to be discussing they're like, oh, she has one choice to make, one that's totally her own. And to me, I interpreted that as whatever she did with Anduin, because Anduin was taunting her a lot about, like, will you actually make this choice, will it be your own? So I feel like the book will be sorting out what happened there. And Anduin has not really shown up in 9.1 too much, besides the Runecarver Primus situation. So I wonder if the book will reveal more about the deal they made. Maybe there's some secret component we don't know about, and then Anduin will play a role in 9.2. Like, maybe Sylvanas didn't totally turn Anduin, and that's why he has some of his control. Or like maybe that was a choice. So it's like, even if I'm gone, Anduin has the strength to free himself. Maybe there's something there, which again will make us feel bad for fighting her or complicate our feelings.
Yeah, like we talked about this last time, where we specifically noted that the moment when Sylvanas turns Anduin is actually completely skipped, right? Like it's right before it happens, and then suddenly we see him as he is already turned now. So then, what are your thoughts, Nobbel, on what might have happened in that time? Do you think that she just went with it? Do you think that maybe she stopped herself but then was pushed into it? Or do you think there's any other kind of interference in that time?
Like, there's a lot of interpretation, absolutely. Like, there is a gap in between, and I think that was the point for the build-up. I think that was the point from that cutscene into BlizzCon, and then accidentally the model was released. But they explained after the BlizzCon with interviews or whatnot that Sylvanas made her choice. Like, this was her choice, and she made it.
So it's just straight
the
up.
reason why Anduin, I think so. Like, the reason why Anduin is able to break free, because the concept of I only turn him a little doesn't really hold up when he's still doing exactly what the jailer wants him to do. The reason why he was able to break free was because that moment, as they also explained in interviews, was so against his character that momentarily the shock of it allowed him to go out of his domination control and actually be like, and then the jailer regained control. And it wasn't to torment him, as some suggested, which I thought was a really cool idea. Like the jailer just letting loose of the little strings and show Anduin what he's doing. But no, Anduin's character. And then he goes back to the jailer, and the jailer's perfectly fine what's happening right now. He's not surprised or confused about Anduin losing control. He is in charge, and he's got his keys. So I think from what they're doing with Sylvanas is that they made like this do or die choice, even though the do or die choice, in my humble opinion, was already made in Battle for Azeroth with the burning of Teldrassil.
Oh yeah.
And I think they done goofed on that one, but okay, fine. A do or die choice with Anduin. And everybody was like, oh, what will she do? What will she do? And then the reveal at BlizzCon was supposed to be this really plot twist moment with, oh, Anduin is still Anduin? She didn't make the choice, everybody. Oh, snap, she did. I think that was the build-up with not showing exactly how she transformed him.
Yeah, but I think the book will make it clear what her feelings were building up to it. Because like you said, if Blizzard's using the narrative like, oh, like, she has Sylvanas has a choice that only she can make, then and then this book has the same thing, then it makes you wonder if maybe if she had to turn Anduin all the way, maybe there's a sense of, okay, well, this explains why she did something else in the raid, or maybe she felt bad about it, or I don't know. I think that there'll be something in 9.1 that is confusing with her, and the book will make more sense, because the 9.1 fight is a little all over the place. So
I read chat for a moment. Hirja was like, she had to make a meaningful choice, and I just died a little bit.
Sylvanas had to pick her covenant, and she doesn't have a weekly quest to change it. So
oh no, poor her. Luckily, we got more choice.
It's a cool moment though. And especially what you mentioned with her whole motivation, because there's a really cool and fun, interesting conversation with Endwin where she's like, we couldn't make any choices. We couldn't even choose who we ... And we're going to leave that
Right.
blank so you can interpret what it is.
Mhm.
There's a lot that they can add into her motivation. But at the same time, what could they possibly say to be like, oh, she did all of that for a good reason? Ah, just let her go.
Yeah, like it's just the
Yeah,
the
like, it
Telltale
went too
thing
far.
was just handled. I feel like it was too extreme. Like, what are you gonna say? Oh, well, she was trying to screw over the jailer, so she did this genocide to have souls that could then fight the like. It's just too messy.
Wasn't the reason also she was just really annoyed in the moment because Sarfang didn't take care of Malfurion? So then she was like, you know what? Just burn everything then.
That is true, but I feel like with Sylvanas they keep doing these plot twists, like in BFA, in the book leading up to BFA, she wasn't really thrilled with being war chief. She seemed annoyed by it all, but she was proud to be the first female war chief. And then in Three Sisters, she's telling her sisters that she likes being war chief, and then in Shadowlands it turns out that she doesn't like any of them, and she doesn't even care about the Forsaken. So I feel like there's a little bit of an unreliable narrator going on, although the books did make it seem like there was a true reason with the darkness that she was serving, but she didn't want to reveal the plan right away.
I
But
love
yeah,
how you call them plot
yeah.
twists, and it's not just
Yeah.
Blizzard trying to retroactively trying to make it all fit, because it's not a
That
plot
It's just
twist
a
if you
plot
don't plan
twist,
it
okay?
beforehand. No.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they had different plans. There's no way that they back in Legion had already this whole plan with the jailer in mind. No way. Battle for Azeroth at the earliest. And then you already indeed got the problems where she's like, oh, I'm the war chief, but I'm being torn with the Forsaken, and yada, yada, yada. And then you're trying to make these puzzle pieces fit for the wrong kind of puzzle. So, yeah.
I guess
Plot
this
twist.
book
I
is
love
meant to
plot twist, though.
put it all together, and
Well, Christy
hopefully
Golden, good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, like, while she is the writer, it's like Blizzard is the one that they're controlling the puppet strings. They'll say like this has to happen in chapter 1. Like even with Shadows Rising, we learned that Anduin being upset and having the shadow magic come out of his hand was
Specified specifically.
specified that Blizzard had to add that in. So it's not like the author is like, oh, I've decided that Sylvanas should show that she's a bad person by burning Teldrassil. That was someone at Blizzard doing all that. So.
Yep.
Yep.
But yeah, why don't we discuss the Arthas quest a bit as well, because that was also added this past week. So
yeah, this was also quite a meaty quest line.
Yeah.
So it's the quest line.
Oh, the Uther one.
Yes.
Yeah, Uther. When we do the non-spoiler version of Wowhead, we call it Uther, but because Arthas is present, everyone's like, oh, Arthas. And yeah, to set the scene for this one, Uther is reliving some memories and is he's getting them all kind of warped together, and he's realizing that Arthas was a bad person, but he feels that he could have been more compassionate along the way, and he finds his memories useful in moving forward in the future. Again, parallel to Tehran, don't be consumed by vengeance. And it actually leads to reformation with the Kyrians, where they will welcome the Forsworn back in, and then they will also allow if the Kyrians want to hold on to their memories, they can.
Why is Devos dead then?
Yeah, justice for Devos. No. I feel like he should have had a bigger story.
Because the Archon sucks.
Yeah, I wonder what the Archon would say now. It's like, oh, look, you didn't listen to Devos, and now you're stabbed by this same Mournblade magic, and
bring Devos
There's
back.
gonna be this speech. I swear, the Archon is gonna hold this speech like, Devos, if you can hear me somewhere in the anima that you're around me, you were right, my friend. I'm so sorry for killing you off in the dungeon before the war campaign actually told your story. I'm so sorry.
I'm like still so baffled.
For Devos.
Yeah, I was so unhappy about that ever since we saw the cinematic. I was like, I like this character, and like the character has a point. Right. And then they killed Devos. And,
and like, even Uther in his end speech, he's like, "Oh, I'm so bad what Devos made me do," and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just
Right?
After
like
killing
throwing
so
her
many,
under the
then
bus.
just bring them all
Yeah.
back. Like, now, you know what?
Yeah.
We're accepting everything now.
Yeah.
Oh, no.
But yeah, for those who are like, okay, the whole quest line,
Mm-hmm.
what's really cool is indeed the connection, the reformation that has been made. Because at the end of the road, like, okay, memories, maybe not everybody has to give up all the memories. Because the motivation behind it is that if you keep your memories as one of the Kyrians and you're ferrying souls, you might do it with judgment. You might all become an Oofer. Like, imagine everybody's an Oofer and they see Arthas and they all start dropping souls into the maw directly, even though that's exactly what the Kyrian have been doing the last 9.0, because
Right.
apparently nobody told them that all the souls are going to the maw directly, but
Or
whatever.
it's not their problem. They're just following orders.
Oh, yeah,
Oh,
Just
true.
rub
it's
their
starting to
Not their
pay.
irk me so bad.
responsibility.
Yeah.
We got so much information as the player, and we just don't share anything. Like, we just keep all of that to ourselves.
We
Oh,
lose our
souls are going
memories
to the
too.
maw? Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
We escaped
I
it.
never knew.
Yeah.
It's great. But yeah, with the whole Uther cutscene, the Afterlife one, we saw that when Arthas stabbed Uther with Frostmourne, Uther called out to the light, and seemingly the light answered because his soul was split into two. You got like the golden soul and the blue soul. Blue soul goes into the blade, golden soul goes into heaven, Shadowlands, and gets judged and end up and kicks off the whole Kyrian storyline where they're starting to question the path. What's interesting is that we now have the addition that when somebody is struck down with a Morn blade in anger, it can fracture the soul. Doesn't always have to happen, but it can. So a lot of people have been wondering, well, what about Sylvanas? Did Sylvanas lose a piece of her soul? Maybe. But I really hope not, because it would just be so disappointing towards the storyline. Like, yeah, all the things that she's done is because she's missing a piece of her soul. It's like, I don't know.
The
But
flavor
at the same
text
time,
on her mount
you're
implies.
gonna bring that up, are you? Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, what is that? Tell us.
So there's let me pull up the exact wording, sorry. So on Mythic difficulty, she drops a mount called Vengeance Reigns, and the flavor text is Sylvanas lost a part of herself the day Arthas took her life, and the darkness within her grew to fill the void.
Oh no. Novel, what does that sound like to you? Do you think
Yeah,
she
it
lost
sounds like well, no, that's not entirely fair. It has multiple interpretations. All right, it has
It's a
multiple
plot
interpretations.
twist.
It could
It's a
be
plot-
that
Yeah.
it could be a part of her soul is taken away, and indeed because she lost a part of her soul. But at the same time, it could also just flow in with the story that we know right now, which is Sylvanas, the Ranger General, is not the same as Sylvanas, the Banshee Queen. The moment that Arthas stabbed her, brought her back, did all those terrible things to her people, she did not come back as the same being she was in life. That's the whole point. But it doesn't necessarily mean that she had no control or no choices. It just means that she wasn't exactly the same as she was in life, which is absolutely fine. And that darkness over the years has started growing. The difference is that one would give her an excuse, like, oh yeah, I had no control, darkness, yada, yada, yada. And the other would be, this is my story progression. And I'm a bigger fan of the story progression part, gotta be honest.
100%.
Yeah,
So
I think it's a lot more
is such
interesting.
big-
It adds agency.
Yeah, I think like having this sort of wrap-up story in the end that just excuses everything makes everything pointless, and it makes it worth so little, and I think it gives people a disappointment feeling too, because we've been dragged on with this story for so long, and then in the end, once everyone has learned to hate or love her, are told, well, it wasn't up to her. Okay, well, boo.
Yeah, like the reasons why you had an opinion about her. Oh, like that actually wasn't her. That was
yeah, your opinion doesn't matter because hey, it wasn't her choice.
Yeah.
Like, nobody is gonna blame Anduin for stabbing the Archon. Like, that's mind control. You can see it, you can see it happen. That's perfectly fine. Nobody's gonna blame him. But for someone like Sylvanas to be like, yeah, she wasn't in control, it would be years of story development, and I think she deserves better. Hate her or love her, at least she is a character.
No, completely.
So in that room,
yeah, go ahead.
In that room, so as I said, souls can shatter when struck down in anger. We end up in this place where we need to get Uther's fragment soul. One of the first questions that people ask, well, what about the blue part of Uther's soul? Where did that end up in? And as it turns out, there's like little fractures in there. Now, we don't save the other shards, which is kind of sad for those spirits, but we do save Uther's one. There's also King Anasterion.
Yeah, I liked all the other
there
names.
There is Sephiron. Sorry?
I liked how they had the names. They didn't explicitly say the names of the souls, but they gave like hints as to who they were, and there were some like really obscure ones as well. So I thought that was a nice touch just for people that knew Warcraft 3. So
Yeah,
but yes,
it's
we
cool to
should
see.
save them at some point. I think that would be good.
Would be great. Just
Yeah,
it's
it would
really
be
funny
nice.
that once again a quest line is like, yeah, we only need one of those, and we're just gonna leave all the others behind. It's just...
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Hey, you
with
need
his
future
soul.
quests, okay?
Oh, right. Could you go and pick up the soul of Blood Queen Lanafell? That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's a shard. We go back to Uther. We dive into memory lane, and I adore this quest line. Like for me,
Yeah,
This is
overall
really cool.
9.1. It's so great. Like you can see the formation about how he became a paladin, and you actually get a human model of a Lance's Fall, which is always nice to be added. We have the undead version in the Priest Order Hall. Now we actually
Right.
see him in live, and we see Arthas. Because I was wondering, like, what kind of scenes are they going to be taking? So Arthas doubting before he becomes a paladin. So such an obscure scene, and yet they remembered it and they put it in there, which is always a nice touch. Of course, the Purge of Strathholm. And then Uther starts to doubt himself, like, could I do more? And the morality behind it, we were discussing this on stream as well. What exactly could he have done differently, right? Could he have given Arthas a hug and make it all better, make him a cup of tea, and then everything would be fine? No, but for someone like Uther, who
Cup of
takes these
tea.
vows as a paladin, just a little cup of tea, come have
Yeah.
a cocoa,
Works in
it's going to be
England.
great.
Yeah.
I miss England so much. But for someone like Uther, it goes against the character that he was, and he felt like he was consumed by something that is not integral to who he used to be. The vows that he took as a paladin, the way that he lived his life. So in the moment that he dealt with Arthas, he feels like he didn't give his best. Would it have changed the outcome? Probably not, but it doesn't mean he couldn't have acted differently.
Yeah, I have two thoughts on that. The first is just a quick observation. The first was I thought it was interesting how when Uther first dives into his memories, they're like a bit warped and mixed together. And I thought that was a very interesting representation of like the trauma that he's going through and how when you like remember something that's painful, you sometimes blur a few of the details, and the Kyrian are like, oh no, but they're like, no, like he needs to experience this. And it still is like something healthy, that it's a good thing that he relived those memories, even if they were a little, fuzzy at the start. And the second thing was that no, maybe it wouldn't have, him being mad at Arthas on the battlefield would not have made, changed Arthas, killing him or not, but Uther having that spirit of anger carried forward into the afterlife, and that anger led him to throw Arthas into the maw. So it did have repercussions beyond his life.
Yeah, a thought that just occurred to me as you were talking about his memories is that in his scene, he actually mentions, like, I can't go through anything else. All I remember is him stabbing me with the blade. Meaning now,
Right.
with this quest line added, he was actually losing, or he lost his memories. Like, he could not physically get through it because all of that was stuck in that shard of him that was taken away, which I
Right.
just realized. I might be late to the party, but...
Yeah, no, thanks for mentioning that, actually.
So yeah, all in
Yeah.
all, a really cool quest line. I'm super happy with it, and it all ends, which I find hilarious and at the same time beautiful, because the whole Forsworn Kyrian storytelling is actually the one done properly, in my opinion, when it comes
I
to morally
agree.
gray.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Forsworn have a very good point. Like, why am I supposed to give up my memories, who I used to be, for this whole path of the Archon and imprisonment of the jailer? What is this all about? And it was nicely built up. It's nicely followed through. They do gloss over what the Forsworn have done rather quickly. It's like, oh yeah, it's not your fault. It's actually my fault. Uther again is like, oh, I could have done something better. But all in all, it's nice. And then they decide, like, okay, not everybody has to give up their memories anymore, which is great because not everybody has the fairy souls. But, side note, in the earlier Covenant campaigns, you join Alexandros Mograine as he visits Bastion.
Oh, right.
And he
Yeah.
asks them, like,
Mhm.
couldn't I have joined you guys? Because this place seems pretty chill compared to Maldraxxus. And they're like, no. Your memories, you shouldn't give those up because they make you stronger. They give you your power. But now he doesn't have to give them up anymore. So
Yeah.
he could just chill in Bastion now. Party with some angels. I think Alexandros earned it.
Party with some
Yeah.
angels.
You also have to wonder if if the cycle of death wasn't always working 100%, like, Uther gets into Bastion and he's sort of fast-tracked and he throws Arthas in the maw, maybe he wasn't the best fit for Bastion, maybe Uther should have been in Maldraxxus instead. I think that some interesting things have happened as a result of Uther being in Bastion, but, just to flip the question on its head, like, why isn't Mograine in Bastion? Well, why isn't Uther in Maldraxxus hanging out there instead? Something about Uther, just to go back, which I find interesting, is that in addition to the Forsworn being well done, while I do think that Devos' character was not handled well, I think that Uther was a good example.
That was terrible.
Yeah. I think
just
Devos
for the
should have just
record,
been in
Devos
prison
should
or
never
something.
She should have never been part of the dungeon.
No.
She should have been part of the mock questing, and she should have never been taken care of. She should have seen this moment. But yes,
I agree. She should have definitely seen this moment.
Yeah, Uther did have, I thought, a lot of subtlety in building up his personality flaws, because we can see the quest through his perspective and we can see how he's trying to be noble, but as we've been doing in the show, we've also been like, okay, Uther, like, stop being so self-centered, like, no, you couldn't have saved Arthas. So I think it's nicely highlighting how he has a heroic personality, but also how it can also be a flaw or a downside as well, if he thinks that, like, he alone has to fix everything. So to me, that's like a more subtle, interesting balance than Tyrande, where it's like, oh, she's like literally a moon goddess, or she's raging with magic erupting from her. I think that Uther's flaws are more, believable and more nuanced. And I think the Kyrian story, aside from Devos, is good at showing nuance and morally gray.
Definitely. Yeah, no, it's actually a very good point. The whole morally gray thing. Because from the beginning, actually, since we got to know Devos as a character, I was like, I kind of don't really want to fight the Forsworn, but I'm kind of forced to. And now seeing the story get together is like, oh, okay, so it was, told in a way that Blizzard wanted us to feel that way. And with that in mind, I'm like, well, why did we have to lose Devos then?
Yeah, she should have been there for that scene, because, like, she was right all along. Like, the jailer's magic was really bad and on that, and the Archon should have cared about it, and now she's been stabbed.
Yeah.
So.
Still wonder what Devos actually talked about with the jailer, though. Like, she had a chat with the jailer. What exactly did he tell her to make her swap sides?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Will we ever find out? I mean, she's gone. Like, will we ask the jailer?
Hey, jailer, like, remember that one time?
Is that like a convenient, like, oh, we're just not gonna mention this, just.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess this is why Blizzard is sometimes careful with killing off characters, in case the story then unwraps and it's like, hey, it's kind of fitting to still have this character alive. And in this case, they decided, yeah, we're gonna kill off the character, and it's like, oh no, we probably shouldn't have. But it is what it is.
Yeah.
She kept a journal. Dear diary, today I met with the jailer.
Hey, the Dreadlords kept a diary.
Yeah, diary, true.
Great. Gather it, Willow. Beautiful suggestion.
Maybe it's already in the dungeon. You just have to go and find it.
Yeah. Enemy infiltrators. But yeah, so just, I mean, obviously, we've highlighted the 2 story chapters from this week, but we'll be working on a video together going up on Wowhead next week about all the interesting reveals in the 9-1 story. Does anything else stand out that you want to talk about? Or, like, if the Covenant campaign is wrapping up, where do we think, what stories do you think are we going to move forward? Because we've also gotten, Carver as Primus, Thrall and Draka reunited, the Night Warriors, we've got Uther, so we do have a few stories that could move forward. Oh yeah, then of course the Dreadlords with Sire Denathrius escaping again. So Dreadlords like Elune could be something that ties into a larger cosmic story, obviously, and also tying things back to Azeroth, but who knows?
We like could even have what?
Yeah. Oh well, I mean, Elune being a figure from Azeroth, and the Dreadlords, their story also.
I thought you said Elune was a Dreadlord. I was like, what detail did I miss?
No, I'm just saying that those are figures that we've encountered in Azerothian lore culture that both have reveals in this 9-1 storyline, and could continue even if the Covenants are all like, oh yeah, we're all happy Forsworn now.
Yeah, fair.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Do you think that
it kind
Thrall
of
and
depends on what
Draco will
you.
get anything more? Because I'm just like, I thought we are gonna get like a cinematic with them or like a tearjerker, and they seem to be all like, I don't know,
Were you
showing
not
it.
moved? I really like their conversation. Draka's voice actress nailed the lines.
Yeah. I thought the conversation was good. I'm just thinking of, Jaina in Battle for Azeroth, where we got
Yeah,
like
she got a whole
a
family
whole
reunion.
story and like 4 cinematics of
Yeah.
reunion and hugs and a
I haven't found
Samari
Duratan yet.
rescuing
I
her.
mean, we
Yeah.
could go on the hunt for Duratan. Where's Daddy at?
Yeah, we could do that.
Now I
Yeah.
want to see them like live, in a cinematic together. Like their lines were so perfect for their characters, and imagine seeing that in a cinematic where they are also fighting together. Fighting in sync with each other. I think that would be
Yeah,
really
like we
cool.
discussed last week.
Throwing their ex away together, like, hey, Mom, this is what
Yeah.
I learned from you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were discussing that last show, how, we sometimes moments, combat moments like Sourfang and Malfurion and Tehran don't really translate well into in-game combat, and we thought there was a lot of potential with Thrall and Draka maybe having like a cinematic where you see that, they're choreographed and, using their weapons in similar ways, or just, really cool visual effects, or if they recognize each other at the start but didn't say anything, maybe Draka's like eyes or facial expressions could convey more. And I don't know, like Jaina got 4 cinematics uniting her with her mom. I feel like we could get one here. Because then
Yeah, that's
they're
fair
all
enough.
kind of paralleling each other. But yeah, what do you make of the whole Dreadlords and Sire Denathrius and that whole situation?
I remember when the first suggestion came up, I was like, do Dreadlords really need that background? Is it really needed? Like, we already know them from the Twisted Nether. They got their story. What does it add? But then we got like the enemy pre-Facebook, and we started speculating
They
about
had
it.
their
Like, what could it be?
diary.
Exactly. They got like their diary.
Mhm.
Daddy Denephrius visited the domain of life. It's kind of scary. Can I come home now? But it's like the whole and hopefully it's gonna pan out. But the whole Dreadlord thing infiltrating all the cosmic domains has some really cool implications with the Titans and Sargeras being put on the path of the Void Lords. That is, he learned from the Dreadlords, like, this is the reason this is what the Void Lords want to do, and that became his reason to form the Burning Legion. But what if the Dreadlords lied? Like, could that be a thing? At the same time, we do see the Void Lord shooting out these old gods, and they do want to consume everything. So I don't know if they lied or they just, pitched them against each other. But there's definitely Dreadlord influence going on there.
I also wonder what Illidan thinks of all this. There is a line they added to Kale dialogue in 9.1 where it's like, what realm do you think Illidan got sent to? Oh, actually,
yeah.
he's alive. Oh, he'd be having fun, fighting Dreadlords. I mean, I think that would be interesting if Illidan's like, oh yeah, Illidan, we learned something new about the Burning Legion, and the Dreadlords are maybe playing both you and Arthas when you both had that fight against each other. So, I think I don't know. I don't think they're gonna bring Illidan back in 10.0, but I just found it interesting how it's like, okay, we've got everyone else from Warcraft 3 period kind of banding together, Vosh and Kale, or helping each other out. Arthas is in a flashback. Jaina's around, Thrall's around. Elun's doing things again. It's like,
Yeah,
Illidan
we're in the
is-
land of the death,
yeah.
we're gonna meet everyone. It's a super party reunions everywhere.
Yeah.
Barely scraped the barrel, to be honest. Like, so far it's just been win and win in Sylvanas, but regardless of that, it is an interesting point though, with the whole Illidan fighting Arthas been in Warcraft 3. Like, how much did the Dreadlords influence? There was also Mal'Ganis back in the day who really wanted to claim vengeance upon the Lich King and told us, like, you're not going to be able to make that happen without my aid, but I'll claim my vengeance upon him and upon
Now
you.
secretly, they're
Yeah, but at the same time, you're not going to tell me that back then they already had the jailer line written out. No way.
Don't believe they did not have the jailer lined up, but I'm just saying in Shadowlands 9.1 now, like,
they're retroactively trying to make it fit. But let's be fair, if we keep in mind, like, okay, the jailer storyline, maybe around Battle for Azeroth they came up with it, then everything that came before that moment now needs to fit. So I don't think Mal'Ganis back in the day was working for the jailer and actually pitching Illidan against Arthas. I think that was a whole different thing with Kill Jaden and the Lich King and a creature out of control. And only now do we learn, like, oh, domination gear and Frostmourne actually comes from the Shadowlands. Oh, that's neat.
Yeah.
It's actually interesting because it goes back to what you said before. It's like you're working a puzzle, and suddenly you're given these new puzzles, and you just have to make everything fit each other. And hopefully it makes sense.
Fair, they're kind of kicking ass with the Dreadlords. I really like what they're building up, to be honest. It doesn't take away a whole lot of what they've done before, because, okay, fine, fair enough, they're actually sent out by the Shadowlands, but who cares? They still done the things that they did. Now do we know that the Lich King more implications, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah, and like it helps that Sardonathrius is, charismatic and is a brand new character, so he can just be a character that's not, needing to be fact checked, with 20 years of appearances in other games.
I'm really glad that they didn't kill him off.
Yeah, so I think that is that part's pretty interesting. But yeah, I mean, with the Covenant campaigns wrapped up, I feel like the stories moving forward would have to be something with Elune, something with the Dreadlords, because they're so successful infiltrating everything, and maybe something with Arthas, especially.
So what about Anduin then? Like, do you think they're going to keep Anduin the way that he is now?
I thought one of the interviews, no interviews confirmed if it was permanent or not, but I thought the interviews made it seem that he was a changed person, that he's not like the idealistic king anymore, and the way they were talking about it made it seem like it was, oh, if he goes back to ruling, he'd be a changed person, as opposed to like, oh yeah, obviously he's changed,
Yeah, exactly.
The jailer.
The poor kid has gone through traumatic experience in the Tower of Torghast, been hanging out there more than any of the other guys, but at the same time, he appears to be Death Knight Arthas right now. And I kind of wonder if the next patch or the next storyline that takes us into the domain of life, if we might actually find a way to bring him back to who he used to be, which also might connect to what they actually have in mind for the Sylvanas fates. Like, what do you do with Sylvanas? Do you kill her off completely? One of the possibilities is to restore Sylvanas to life and actually make her feel like whole again, because apparently there's like a massive hole that's missing, and make her truly feel all the things that she's done, and let that be your punishment. Put her on ice for a couple of years. Don't kill her off, as they're not, too happy with anymore, and actually bring her back to life. Maybe Nephanos as well. They can have a couple of kids and they can live their life on the farm.
Oh no, is Nephanos gonna get away again?
But I mean, I do think that would be interesting, making her feel everything. And it's also like, when, we need to sort out the issue of, does Sylvanas know everything the jailer is responsible for? And if so, is he joining him willingly?
Yeah, does she realize the implications to do with Arthas? Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, hey,
like she's not dumb.
Yeah, it's like, hey, this Mournblade looks really similar to that the Arthas Mournblade, and you're holding it in the exact same position, and you've seen,
wouldn't she hesitate to work with him then?
Fractured souls, and
I mean, that's been the question since day one, right? Like, why the heck does Sylvanas work with the One? If she was so pissed off at Arthas and the Lich King, which was her whole story up till the end of Wrath of the Lich King, why work with the source behind it? And I think that's the motivation we're going to see explained in the book. But then again, you can ask the same question about Helya. Helya was pissed off at Odin for turning people into Valkyr. But the one who showed him how to do that was the jailer.
Yeah.
She's working with the jailer just fine.
Yeah. That's another thing. It's like, all this goes back to this one, supernatural being who is creating all the problems, and you guys think that he's going to solve them and have a better future, when all he does is create problems. So, like Anduin is telling Sylvanas, like, okay, if you think that stuff's unfair, that's cool. You've had a bad life, but why do you think the jailer is going to be the one to we're in this ugly, spiky, desolate prison. He doesn't really have good experience.
Like, what's going to be different now? Why do you think now it's going to be good for you?
Yeah.
And I think that falls back into the line of choice. Like, I've done speculation videos about it before, trying to figure out, like, okay, what the heck's going on with Sylvanas and why would she work with the jailer? And why would she change her mind now? Because she seems to be more doubting about what she's actually doing. Think, for example, the Change of Domination cutscene where
Mm-hmm.
Enduin brings back the sigil, and she's like,
Doesn't
what's
look
going
super
on
happy.
here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, what did you expect? Enduin tells her, like, look around you, look at who you joined. And it's like, has she not looked around? Like, we can all see Torghast, right?
Yeah. We didn't do a weekly run.
Yeah. Maybe she was hiding from Tyrande, so she didn't have time to take a look everywhere.
Just
Yeah.
Tyrande chasing her. Poor Tyrande, endless Torghast, and she's just been running that for months. No wonder she's so upset.
No rewards.
Good point. And here we are complaining because we have to run it once a week sometimes.
Yeah.
You know,
Or twice.
or twice until we got enough legendaries. And that's a good point. I think we should be more empathetic of Sylvanas, no?
And although that fight, we're talking about spoilers, so we could talk about it. Apparently, she rips Torghast apart. Like, what?
Wait, really?
That's so cool. Yeah, she like brings the tower down, and then Thrall and Jaina make like platforms that you could climb up
Yeah,
on.
the Sylvanas fight, not Tyron. Yeah, in phase 2, she's at the very top, and he just like rips the tower, and then we fly through the air and into the Arbiter's Chamber.
Rip Helm of Domination, rip the tower.
We go to the Arbiter's Chamber?
Yeah. Wait, you didn't see the data mining on that?
No.
Or
So we make a platform from the Maw into the Arbiter's Chamber?
Yeah, hold on.
Does the jailer sing I Want to Be Up There? Does he? That would be great.
But yeah, the data mining.
I hope so.
Looking at the raid as well as here, I'll link it in Discord.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the article, and if you look at the ending, that looks really similar to the Arbiter's Chamber. These are the final images when we explore model view, and then there's a bunch of skyboxes called Arbiter Sky Raid Fight.
That looks so cool. Oh yeah, that is the Arbiter's Chamber. Yeah.
Yeah, and in the images in this article, you can see it starts off on the platform at the top of Torghast, and there's change in the sky, which is phase 2, and then it's the Arbiter's Chamber in phase 3.
Essence, jailer claws his way to the Arbiter. The Arbiter is the final key. We must protect it at all costs. Jaina Thrall makes platforms for us as Sylvanas goes reeing around the platform trying to stop us. We stop Sylvanas, but we're unable to stop the jailer. He finds his final key, transforms into Super Jailer, and flies out of there into 9.2.
Super Jailer.
If he puts on the Arbiter like battle armor, that would make me so happy. Like combine into one being. Oh, it'd be so cool.
Yeah, and just for people that haven't seen the exact description, it's Stage 3, the freedom of choice. Nothing can stop what is to come. Sylvanas follows the players, greeting them for the final showdown between death and inevitability in the jailer's master plan. So, seems like the jailer
the way
and
that
Arbiter...
the fight is described is sick. Like, absolutely sick. Thrall and Jaina there making platforms that you need to climb upon, and just...
Yeah.
Can't...
Like,
a little bit
visually and also
Windrunner
probably gameplay-wise, that's so cool.
I do kind of wish that the Windrunner sisters would have a part to play in that final
Like
confrontation.
what happened
Maybe
to
like
Verisa? Like she's just out of the picture. At least we know Ilaria is doing stuff with the Alliance in Shadowlands with Trallion ruling. But it's like Verisa's just like, is she dealing with her 2, kids that in Dalaran by herself? I don't know. I just feel like she should have a bigger role, especially if she had the big role in War Crimes, almost thinking of living with Sylvanas, and Sylvanas had the whole plan to, kill her and raise her as an undead so they could be sisters together. Another example of a book that was likely written before this whole jailer thing came up, because why would Sylvanas be so upset her sister didn't want to join her in death if everyone's going to die?
Yeah, and then the Battle for Azeroth comic where she had like the ambush plans, and again she decides not to kill her sisters because that seems to be the part that still calls to whatever Sylvanas can still feel. There's Navanos and there's her sisters, so I kind of feel like they should be there, but
yeah, I agree. So
can you do?
Yeah. I was like, there's only so many characters.
At least we can get Sourfang's soul back in the form of a trinket. That's nice. Nice
Oh
touch
yeah, so
there.
it's like, what happened to
Yeah.
Sourfang? Like, did he just get disenchanted in the maw? Like,
Oh
like
no.
is like because in Shadows Rising, Bwansamdi gave Zakan the illusion that Sourfang was happy, and then revealed later on that it was an illusion. So it's like, did Sourfang get sent to the maw, or is he like, a mana battery for Revendreth, or is he like tormented in a cell with Anduin, like or did Sylvanas just be like, yoink, I'm gonna put the soul in my pocket because he was a pain in the
Big
ass in
trinket
life?
out of it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yoink.
so it's
Yep.
like, is there more to Sourfang besides the trinket? Because I think it's really strange they said that Varian and Sourfang wouldn't really play a role in Shadowlands, that like their legacy would play a role, but they wouldn't be part of it. Like, this seems like such a good opportunity to have them be part of the story. So
So
I don't know, maybe they
variant
wanted to.
too. Yeah, I mean that does feel like lots of missed opportunities because especially with what's happening with Anduin right now, I feel like it could be really interesting with variant coming in and Sarfang because we just got so involved with him so much in BFA,
Mm.
and we still don't really know where he ended up, and that's also really perfect storyline for where we are right now to
Yeah, or have like a mini interaction. Like, if he's
yeah.
stuck in the maw and he sees Tehran rescuing the Night Elf souls, like, I don't know, a little moment between them that he's
Yeah.
gonna be stuck in the maw
That
as
would be
she,
the 9 point.
rescue. Yeah.
That would be the Artewield cutscene where Sylvanas summons something uber powerful from the maw, which is Enduin. Enduin
Right.
shows up. Tirana shows up. There's like this big confrontation, and then massive Goldrin Variant Spirit shows up, and he's like, "Son, what are you doing? Remember who you are." And Enduin is like, "Daddy."
Exactly.
It will be the moment that breaks the mind control. Sylvanas is like, "Snap! I gotta take you back to the jailer now." So she runs away. Tirana falls asleep because she's like, "A Varian. Oh my god, you're so big!" And then she faints, and then it's great.
She faints.
And he is like, "Oh, you remember?" Yeah, that's how it goes.
But I
Oh.
do think that this was confirmed in a BlizzCon line interview that they weren't going to be there, and I do think that, I don't know. I still think we're getting Arthas, even though Blizzard's like, oh, we want to give them the proper weight, and like, I don't think that. I think that the story sets itself up that it makes sense why Sourfang would be present, especially if
Yeah.
Sylvanas is like reflecting on her past, or it
Mm-hmm.
makes sense that Varian, I don't know, if we're getting like, Draka reuniting with Thrall, it's, I don't know. I think that Varian would have a lot to say, especially if, Legion had that whole build up where, Anduin picks up the sword and he has a vision of his father. It's like, well, I don't know, maybe he could have a vision of his father in Torghast, or I don't know. I feel like they have a bond, and
For
Varian
sure.
Soul would have something to say about his weapon being,
Exactly.
melted down and reforged.
They
So
Mm-hmm.
did say that the crystal was going to be something more interesting than just a soul catcher, so they might have something planned with that.
yes,
Maybe.
I just feel like this, maybe it's a resource issue or book issue, but I
It
feel
might
like
be a
they
resource
set up
issue, yeah.
really interesting things with both of them, especially Sourfang with all of the cinematics, and
Mm.
also, is I wonder what Varian would even think about Sylvanas, because their whole, both of them working together to fight the Legion was the iconic cinematic, and now
Mm-hmm.
it's like, oh, actually, look what
Yeah.
You done
Sylvanas
goofed.
cost.
Yeah,
Yeah.
maybe it
Done
is a
goofs,
resource
Varian.
issue. Maybe Blizzard does feel like they can't do them justice properly, so they just want to kind of postpone it for some kind of another future event because right now is honestly the best time for both of them to appear. And maybe they're just very afraid to do it wrong.
Yeah, I mean, could be a 9-2 story, but I was very surprised when they said they wouldn't be in Shadowlands.
Yeah.
Although I feel like they've said that characters wouldn't be in something and then they were in the
Oh, maybe to
past.
like not
Like,
disappoint.
right, like BFA isn't an Old Gods expansion, or like, the story is on the Alliance and Horde. Like, they've done some misdirection before.
That is
But
true. Maybe if they
yeah.
hype people up and say that Varian will be back, then people will have really high expectations, and then it becomes like maybe not the biggest event, and then people are mad. Maybe that's why.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think, Noble?
It could be that idea. At the same time, there's only so many characters you can give the spotlight. Somebody also asked in the chat, like, what about fell annihilation? Would that do something with the soul? And it has been debated, like, what exactly happened to Varian? Did he completely get soul dusted by Gul'dan, so there is no spirit that can go to the Shadowlands? To that, I would say, if you compare it to the Eshemain storyline, Eshemain, the Wild God, also got blown up in the War of the Ancients by a whole bunch of fell, and she made it over into the Shadowlands perfectly fine.
Okay.
I would say it's not a guarantee that Varian Soul is no longer there, as well as how cool would it be to see him again, right? In the form
Yeah.
of a Goldrin, in the form of a Varian. But at the same time, I would argue that the whole of the Shadowlands so far have very little utilization of that massive roster of characters of the past that they have. They don't use it that much. Like they created a couple of new characters, which is cool. But
Yeah.
think, for example, Torghast, how awesome it would have been to fight bosses of the past, only miniature Torghast versions. And they don't.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw with Uther how everyone assumed he died a certain way, and then, we saw the spirit of Uther helping us in Ice Crown Citadel, and then it's like, oh, look, we learned something new in Afterlife's Bastion. There were two parts of his soul, and one is stuck away, another part, went to Bastion. And I feel like, they changed Uther's death to make it fit the lore. They added more details onto it, and, I'm sure if they really wanted Varian to come back, it's like, oh, his physical body disintegrated, but his spirit survived. They could do something if they wanted to.
That's what I wanted to comment on, by the way. You mentioned earlier, like, they're not going to give us Arthas quite yet, but we do still have one more chapter on 9.1, right? And they do make
Yeah.
mention of what happened to Arthas. Uther, what did you do? And Uther is like, yeah, I had no choice. I had to drop him in there. Wouldn't that mean that the final chapter is going to be, I don't know, on the trail, on the hunt for Arthas?
I mean, I think that would. I agree. Like, there's the Forsworn might be happy, but there's still the issue of Uther. What did you do? Why did you throw him into the maw? And
right,
we don't know, like, if that's what caused the machine of death to break at the start. Because it feels like the Arbiter would not be happy to know that Arthur got thrown into the maw by accident.
Whoops.
And it's also like Sylvanas. Wouldn't Sylvanas have come across Arthas in the maw? Like,
I mean, at the same time, would Arthas really have been judged elsewhere? Like, if we go by the idea that Sylvanas did indeed get judged to go into the maw, because there is still the potential that the jailer dragged her in there, but say that that's not the case, because there have been spirits instantly dropped into the maw by the Arbiter. If she goes to the maw, why wouldn't Arthas? He's done way worse.
I would say that if Garrosh gets sent to Revendreth, and at the time Sylvanas thought that she was going to go to the maw in Wrath, I don't think she was as bad as Garrosh then. That to me doesn't line up. And do we have a good example of a soul that got instantly sent to the maw, like do not pass go, stay in the maw? Because the maw is sort of like the place you go when you fail out of Revendreth.
I don't have a soul as an example, but I do have the BlizzCon interview and the cutscene with the Arbiter where they did say, like, yeah, there are souls that go instantly. Because we have discussed the idea of everybody should go to Revendreth first, at least have a chance of redemption. But that is apparently not the case. And that is something that Blizzard has decided because that small trickle in the cutscene and because of in interviews where they said, like, yeah, some souls just instantly go to the maw. And like I said, yeah, Sylvanas could have been manipulated and dragged in there by the jailer. But that then flows into the idea of why would she ally with him?
Yeah.
Well, would she know that she was tricked? I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Might actually play into
more
it.
plot twists.
Yeah. Blizzard has made it seem that Arthas wasn't like totally mind controlled by Anduin. That he was definitely like influenced by the jailer, but he had more control of his actions. Like he was sort of being like hinted, helped along. So I don't know if, you could be like, well, should he be judged for the things he did, like Stratholme, or should he be judged for the things he did after picking up Frostmourne? Like, did that influence him too much? Again, another sort of messy plot point that maybe the Sylvanas book will make sense of. But yeah, that is an interesting thing. Like, would Arthas have been judged and sent to the maw, or would he have been sent to Revendreth for the earlier crimes he committed, but not all of them? So I
imagine
do think
if
he should show up.
Imagine if we go through all this trouble to get him in front of the arbiter, and she just, his mom, just take him back there. He belongs.
Yeah.
It's like,
Save me the trouble
Uther
of
was
judging
right.
him, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, right?
Oh.
But yeah, it does make you wonder, like, if Arthas is in the maw, would Sylvanas have wanted to, find him? Like, or is he like, I don't know, like, sort of
That
ebbing
flows
away? But yeah.
into the Edge of Night story, where they actually describe how she tossed herself from Ice Crown. She does run into Arthas, and the line
Yeah.
was, in the grand scheme of the universe torment, the Lich King was insignificant. And she was like, don't care, getting tormented, leave me alone. So I don't know if she
Right.
still cares about Arthas that much. I think her mindset is more towards this unjust system where we have no choice and everything's mean and bad and angry, and life is but a flicker compared to the eternal torment of being put to work in the Shadowlands, which then goes into the idea of the Shadowlands, this whole machine where you actually get put to work. I still think it's BS. I still think that this whole system is just created to contain the jailer, and we're going to find out, like the Shadowlands as you see it right now, it's just a machine, a prison system.
Or like the Arbiter and Jailer are both bad. Like, we don't even know that much about the Arbiter. She's just like sitting there weak, and if the Jailer and the Arbiter are going to face off against each other,
weak.
Doesn't seem like a fair fight. Yeah.
Oh.
Some like red beam of light comes down and like zaps her, and then she's just like, okay, I'm done. Like,
Perk would have taken it like a champ and be like, red beam, I'm judging people here.
Yeah. So
weak arbiter. Beautiful. These things I just kind of Anduin taunting people, arbiter being weak. I just can't take these things out of my mind anymore. It's great.
Yeah,
so
I think that was
yeah. I was gonna say, if we had any more lore stuff too, you wanted to mention with 9.1, they were not
so much going on in 9.1, but I don't know how much you already discussed last stream, because I kind of got the feeling you already discussed the previous chapters.
We're still happy to talk. Yeah.
Yeah, I really want the Thrall cinematic. But
I get that. What did you guys think? Because I'm curious. What did you think about the start? The true Mawwalker bit being prophesized, a brand new stone that shows up that conveniently teleports everybody in. What do you think about that? It's not really. I'm knowing that I'm asking a tainted question, but what did you think?
I mean, it was a little. I don't know. I'm not the biggest fan of like, oh, like a mysterious thing shows up and now there's a prophecy. I guess I don't know. I would prefer things to feel like more organic, flowing into each other. Similar to like the Revendreth, like, oh, a book comes and explains to like Renathal why he should think something. But I thought the story of the questline in general was just like, wow, we're really not being competent about these things. Like, we think that we're the heroes, but we're not doing a good job. We seem to be
with the
losing
sigils.
a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was the part that stood out, is like, I'm not really sure. This doesn't really feel like a payoff. This kind of seems like we keep telling ourselves we're winning, but like kind of failing.
Speaking of sigils, we still need to make new ones. Well, we kind of are.
Yeah. So
it's a sad truth.
Like we give Bolvar one job in Ardenweald. It's like, Bolvar, do not let the jailer take the sigil. We go about, do the entire thing, walk up to Bolvar. Bolvar, tell us, baby, how did it go? Yeah, they took the sigil. Mother ducker.
Yep.
Yeah. Speaking of Bolvar, I feel like his story could continue, hopefully, or I don't know.
Like Captain Exposition.
Yeah.
Captain Exposition.
That's Bolvar. That's Bolvar in the Shadowlands. All he does is give exposition. He doesn't do anything.
He should meet up with, Anduin. So, yeah.
I feel like he was at least given justice with looking cool.
Yeah, like he at least met his daughter. Like that was a cool reunion.
Yeah.
I feel like WoW has a lot of orphans, or like estranged families, and in Shadowlands, trying to be like, oh yeah, let's try to reunite them and focus on some, actual family relationships, instead of everyone, not conveniently not having a mom or around. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what did you think of the opening novel? Because you brought.
Oh, right. Yeah, I'm not a fan. I really want them to take that bit out. I hate being called the true Mallwalker.
That
Oh,
happens like
Mallwalker.
every expansion too. It's like we're the true Azerite, true artifact
We're the
wielder.
true Azerites. Champion, come here. You're the true Azerite. It's ridiculous and it's not needed. All of a sudden, this strange land gets pulled in, and it has conveniently gotten this waystone that will allow us to teleport our troops in at the same time. Isn't that convenient? Oh wait, this mysterious land that was pulled out of the nowhere also had a prophecy that goes about us, and now we're the true Mawwalker, and can we use our mounts instantly in the Maw? It's so cheap. It's not even needed. Just add the bit about use your Maw to the whole iQuest line. So not only will the eye no longer look at you, you can now use your mount. Makes perfect sense. And that whole true Maw Walker nonsense is not needed to activate the Waystone. You literally see, if you look out of Oribos, that the Maw is spreading. The Maw is literally invading Oribos.
Yeah.
That makes sense that it works the other way around, Bliss. Just let us invade the Maw. You don't need this whole prophesized BS.
Yeah, I think that the
Like, it's too
Shadowlands story
dramatic?
has like
It's
enough emotional beats that it works
cliche.
on its own, but
Yeah.
it's like, why do we have to be like the hero that solves everything and we're flawless until we realize we've done the wrong thing? Like we just we save N'Zoth with the power, we don't save N'Zoth, but like we defeat N'Zoth with the power of the heart of Azeroth, shooting laser beams, and we're the champion that holds the artifact weapon. Like we're always the strongest character, and we're tied to a prophecy, or we're the only one that can solve it. And it's just like, I don't know, sometimes I just want to just play the game and not always feel like you're this mysterious, powerful character that is like the one and only character. Sometimes you want to feel like you're part of an army that's just working with your covenant to go, fight and take over the Maw. And you don't have to be like the chosen one time.
Ralph
like,
the Lich King
what's
did
your
that so
power?
nicely.
Yeah. And like, what is
Like,
your power in relation to all these powerful characters? Are you like as powerful as Jaina? Are you like almost as powerful? Like, it's just we're sort of in this awkward middle space.
I'm pretty sure we're immortal by now.
Yeah,
like,
we're more
but
powerful
Ralph
than
the Lich
everyone.
King,
Yeah.
right?
No one is stronger than
But
us.
Ralph the Lich King had this beautiful intro quest line in the Borean Tundra where they're like, "Hey, we know you, soldier. Skip the line. That's all I want. All the
Right,
recognition I
exactly.
need, and then send me on my poop quest. That's fine. But you can't make somebody true Mallwalker and then go ask them to get lunch. No, I got people to get lunch. I'm the true Mallwalker, baby. I don't do this kind of business. You can't have it both ways. But I will
why are we tricked so frequently? Like, oh, we're so geniuses with artifact weapons. Now we're gonna go like burn down Teldrassil after we, free the Nightborn, and the Nightborn gonna be like, oh, we don't burn you, Night.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But there is this little bit about Azeroth with like, we are connected to Azeroth's soul, and there's something going on there. The jailer made mention of it in the pre-patch, or at least the minions of the jailer, like, our master will claim your world's soul. In the Maw intro, he mentions that soul again. There is something going on there. And I wonder what kind of connection they're building up.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, Sargeras was really interested in Azeroth's world soul and, stabbing the planet. And they did say in one of those interviews that this isn't the last we've seen of the sword. So,
which people took as in like, oh, it's gonna play a critical role in the Shadowlands, but that's not what they said. They said, yeah,
no,
it
I don't
might
think
have a
in
point to
Shadowlands.
play at some point.
Yeah, I was thinking like a 10-0 thing, like, whenever they tried to clean up the story of Teldrassil and Undercity, and if Anduin ever comes back to life, I'm sure like the tensions with war that Turalyon is going to be, creating with his different mindset.
Do you think it's possible that we're gonna have Anduin just be lost for some time now?
Yeah.
I could see that.
Could you see him being gone like for the entirety of the expansion, for example?
The problem with what we have right now, especially when we're talking about faction war, is that Anduin is passive. Anduin is not a character that would start a faction war. So that means that constantly you will have the Horde be the aggressor and the Alliance being the responder. Take Anduin out of the equation and play someone like Turalyon on the throne, who's like, I was part of the Sons of Lothar. We could retake some other Alliance areas. That sounds like a fun idea. And all of a sudden, you have the Alliance that can be aggressive and the Horde be responsive. I could definitely see that happen, yeah.
Yeah, I could see that happening, but again, it's
Spice
just like, why did you have the meetup with Teldrassil where it's like, how do you, the Horde already had Theramore, and now they have Teldrassil. How do you could say, oh, well, that was Sylvanas, the Horde was confused, but your average player is going to be like, okay, well, even if they were misled by Sylvanas, but even if you're like, okay, now the Alliance is the aggressor in a war front, it's still okay. Well, this one side has very dramatic, they destroyed like a zone, like that's pretty bad. So.
Yeah, no, that's actually a really interesting point that you made, because having Horde as always the aggressor and now giving space for the Alliance to potentially be would definitely color Alliance in a more interesting way, because I think people have become really bored of that, It's all about the boy king who does nothing and who...
Like, his bones and Mop were like hurting if he did something wrong.
Yeah. So I think that would definitely bring some interesting contrasts into the stories.
Yeah, because it doesn't have to be that way. Like he's an inexperienced king, so that's a storyline they could have pulled on a Battle for Azeroth, where he was misguided or misdirected, or people did not listen to him. But instead, they go with the Golden Child, and Anduin can do no wrong, knows every right move, cannot lose. And that dynamic, you also saw that happen between Varian and Thrall. In the past, Thrall was the leader of the Horde, the war chief, and he was super mellow and chill. Varian was the aggressor. And over time, they swapped that dynamic. Varian became more like Thrall. So what did they do? They turned a Garrosh in the throne, who could then be the aggressor with Varian being chill. And so it kind of seems to rotate, which is interesting.
I also think that the Horde had a leadership shakeup, and now the Council seems to make more sense, and that's more interesting to players, and more races feel represented. And we started to see stress lines in the Alliance's mode of leadership, where it's like, oh, Tyrande has to take orders from some 18-year-old boy, and why is he in charge of everything, with no experience, when you have, Velen, who is also very old, all these other more skilled generals.
Not sure if Velen is the right one to be leading anyone, though. Well, considering the Draenei history.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, if you're going by age experience, but it's more like, why is the least experienced person in charge just because of the bloodline, and why does the human kingdom get the priority as opposed to all these other civilizations? So, maybe with Tyrallion in charge, you could have some growing pains there, but maybe the Alliance would end up with a different form of leadership, where there are maybe Tyrallions in charge of the military, someone's in charge of something else, or a council has to vote on things. But I definitely sensed in BFA that kind of like the wheels were kind of falling off the monarchy, with Anduin not always knowing what he's doing, but being in charge, and causing a lot of tension. And there was that interview, I think, in BFA, where they're like, oh, the Horde is looking at, going through political turmoil that could happen to the Alliance in the future. So I could definitely see this whole, there must always be a king from this one family in charge. I could definitely see that being changed, especially if Anduin's like, I don't want to rule. I need a break from all. I am really messed up as a result of Shadowlands.
Oh, like exploring Azeroth, but it's Anduin and Rathion going to explore like the Dragon Isles and new islands and stuff. Oh, yes, please.
Oh, Anduin and Rathion reunite, yeah.
I mean, like, what does Rathion think about all this? Like, he was all like, oh, dragons, 8-3, and now he's like, oh, everyone just went off to the Shadowlands, that's all. Like, cause trouble in Stormwind.
Yeah.
Like,
that's funny as well. Khadgar chilling in the Tower of Karazhan, just looking up at the sky. Yeah, it's not my problem now anymore, is it? I'm reading my books.
They're all just like Khadgar, Rathion, Magni. They're all just like chilling together, being like, have
a cup of tea. Yeah. Yeah, I think that kind of does cover a lot of the storylines. If there's anything else that you want to jump into, Nobbel, like, feel free.
There's so much, but I think we've covered a lot.
Yeah, we have.
So much. And we're going to do a collab video on it as well. I'm hoping coming Monday if we get like the final chapter, but it will be up real soon as well.
Yeah, it was meant to be last week, but I was like, oh no, there's Arthas and like Uther and the Winter Queen. We have to include them in the video. We can't, we can't do it.
Reason.
So we know it's getting late for you in
it is indeed.
Europe.
It is,
but we could like run through some things quickly, just like other things that happened in WoW this week that you may care about. Just pulling up my notes.
Like we mentioned the
Like
Preach and Ian interview. Maybe we can't really dive into it, but there were some interesting things that happened. That I don't know if you watched it. If there's anything that you want to mention about it, otherwise we could.
I have not. No, I've not watched the entire thing because for Shadowlands I kind of dipped out with the whole progressive rating and whatnot. I remember
Yeah.
that Ian told everybody to get good, and apparently Twitter
Yeah.
really liked that, which was nice.
Yay, the Twitter warriors.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I saw that.
I think it was also interesting that Ian, touched on the whole thing of content is delayed right now, and so it's nice to hear that as a confirmed thing. That Chains of Domination was the first bit of real content that was worked on while people were working remotely. So there's a lot of delays due to that, which I think is a lot more easy for people to accept than just silence. So I think that was nice as well. And then there were a few comments on the different aspects of the game as well as a whole, and it's nice in general to have seen this interview happen because we've been missing them. We've been missing these dev talks with content creators, because then it feels a lot more personal than a blue post being thrown out there, because you can get those live commentary on things too. And in this case that was Preach doing that for us. And I think it's always nice to have those things happen.
Yeah, especially because the sorry, go ahead.
Sorry.
The
Question.
Build
At the
this
same
week added
time,
a
did we
lot of
get
stuff.
anything? Did we get anything out of the interview that was like unexpected answers? Like, did we actually get anything that was worthwhile, or was it all just what we expect to be getting out of Ian?
I think
probably
the
what we
Torghast
expect.
stuff. I mean, like, there's a few minor things, like, oh, we've got a Torghast system coming, but then we got it the next day. The Get Good thing, I think, was the most like popular thing from it. I feel like I think people go into Ian interviews expecting there to be like Ian's gonna reveal something big, but like Ian's strength is, well, you may not agree, but he really likes explaining things. So like you might have an interesting background, but someone could just be like, I want to know why this was done, and you don't get that from the thing. We learned what let's see. We learned that what Mega Soul Ash was actually for. That's such a funny name. So that was kind
Mega
of
Soul Ash.
notable.
Yep.
Yeah. We learned that tier sets are still planned. And we learned that the Shards of Domination, which are like these data mined raid gems you stick in gear, the system was still very much a work in progress, but the idea was that some of the bonuses would only work in the raid, and I don't think we knew that, because people were like, oh god, do I have to get this gem to have it proc for PvP? So, but yeah, I mean, I think it was nice to see Ian, but it wasn't like, oh my god, we learned, the Date or the Mage Tower is returning, or Sourfang Arthas confirmed. But, I
always like listening to Ian talking about these things too. It's always very entertaining.
Yeah, and the memes that result from it.
Yeah. Apart from the interview, there were some minor updates on the PTR as well. The PTR. The beta, rather. The beta now. Have to get used to that. Got some new models here and there, some interesting cosmetics that were apparently Maw inspired, so that was interesting. Got some new quivers that will make hunters happy, and and then some minor system changes too. Just quickly going through them, we got the Torghast scoring, which is causing a lot of questions out there in the community. Like, is this something that we needed?
Running negative, powers that make you lose your head every minute.
I enjoy Torghast so much. I want a scoring system. I mean, you never know. Maybe this will make it more interesting. I would have personally just liked to get more anima from it to complete my transmog
Nobody
sets.
asked for this. Nobody was like, add some stupid mythic plus affixes to Torghast. We want more powers, Bliss. New floors, new bosses. Make it fun and interesting. It's your playground. Nobody's looking for a challenge. What are you doing? And then stupid numbers that you're like, it doesn't even impact the game. What are you doing? Who is developing Torghast right now? Nobody wants this.
Yeah, it's like how why are we talking about islands being good content because of so many rewards? Like everyone memed islands, and everyone's like, oh, at least islands, had
Didn't
mounts and pets and old armor sets. Like,
yeah, and also
did
at
not
least
expect that
islands
plot twist.
islands
Islands being good.
Islands never had some new system changes throughout the expansion. So like what you got at the beginning was kind of it. I think we got some new
Yeah.
maps, but that was about it. So
Right.
people do feel really concerned about this we're in a time where the pandemic is going on and people working from home, so things are taking longer, decisions and designing and developing. So why are we having these extra dev time being spent on this when it's something nobody has asked for? It's it's a very questionable choice, but I guess we'll see how that turns out.
Yeah.
The Mythic Plus system is a little bit more well received because Raider IO has been very, very loved and used for a long time. Some people might be a little bit concerned that we have a system which is in the game itself because might lead to more toxicity. But at this point, it's so overly used everywhere that you can't really avoid some kind of scoring system that people use. So yeah, we'll see how the Mythic Plus gearing or ladder system will work out.
Yeah.
I think that will be interesting to see. And then there was a small note on PvP as well, where there's a bit more requirement on staying active in the bracket where you have received your rating in order to upgrade your gear. Yay, even more stuff that we have asked for. And yeah, that's about it. I think that wraps up the last week's news for the most part. Would have loved to jump into more lore discussions, but it is getting late, so we should wrap it up here. You know what this means, Novel? This means that you have to join us again sometime. We will miss you, but thank you very much for your inputs today. It's always really nice to hear your views on things. Especially if it's something that we might have not thought of, like me and Park could sit here and talk for a few hours, but then NOBBEL comes in and brings, another really nice perspective of things. So really nice.
I feel like that, the perspective that maybe Elune maybe shouldn't have been them. Maybe the Night Elves were expecting too much. So I like that angle.
Yeah, no, definitely. It's always really nice to just have the ball juggling like that between all of us. So thank you very, very much. And thank you to everyone for I forgot to remove the spoiler tag for the last bit.
Oh.
Hi! Spoilers are over! Yeah. We got Mythic Plus leaderboards coming in, and we got some Torghast potential leaderboards as well, since they're adding a scoring system. Very much appreciated news in the whole thing. This show has gone on for a long time, so to just wrap it all up, we wanted to thank NOBBEL for being here, for giving his inputs on the different lore aspects, and for giving his input on the Torghast scoring system as well. That was greatly appreciated. And with that, we'll see you all next week. Is there anything that you want to say as your last words here for today, NOBBEL?
Thank you very much for joining, everybody. And I had a ton of fun talking with you guys about the lore. Sparring, thinking about ideas is great. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, as a reminder, NOBBEL and Wowhead have some stories coming up. When was it for, you said?
This Monday, we think.
Hopefully, if we get the last chapter anyways. We're waiting on the last chapter for the PTR.
Gotcha. So you can soon expect some really nice YouTube content to hear some more about the lore, of course. Yeah.
So I think we're good for the high five. I don't know where the cat is.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Right. NOBBEL, you have to be on the same side. Other side.
Yeah. Many times.
And Park, you need to go to the other side as well.
Oh.
Yeah, there it is. Okay.
Beautiful.
All right.
Yes. All right. I guess I'll do the countdown since you guys will have the same delay from me. I think that makes the most sense. And I'll move with you guys. Thriller. All right. Okay. So in that case, countdown. 3, 2, 1. Yeah, works out perfectly.
Good job.
Good
job. Fantastic.
Yes, high five online, very social distanced gaming. Highly recommend. And yeah, we'll see you all again next week. And one last thank you to NOBBEL. Don't forget to check out NOBBEL's socials. NOBBEL87 on Twitter. You can also find him on Twitch and YouTube, of course, as well, with all the deep dives into any character that you might think of in the lore universe, and he's probably got it covered.
You're really good at this, by the way. This promo stuff is fantastic. Also, Instagram, OnlyFans, porno. I got all the things. All of them.
Oh, yeah. Well, there you go. Nobbel has expanded his branches, and don't forget to check all of those, all of those pages out and support him. Click like, click comment, and ring the bell. Yes, that's it. Thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you again next week.
Yep.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.